Hey, brothers and sisters, Mathattan's back. So we are going to knock out episode 3 and 4 in my new costume series. I had promised that I do all the different elements, so I do owe you guys 2 videos. We're going to get these knocked out, and then at the end of the video, I'm going to kind of talk about going forward, how I'm going to approach content and some of the different things that I'm going to cover. But I do have a funny story, and maybe it's some technical advice for anybody out there that's using Streamlabs OBS. I did update the software today, and I logged in, or it prompted me to log in again as a fresh account. So I normally had logged into Twitch, and I decided, okay, well, maybe I'm going to do YouTube live streaming later, so I'll go ahead and log in through YouTube. I got into the software, and all my scenes and all my transitions, everything was gone. I could not figure out how to get everything back. So I had a panic attack, opened a service ticket, and then luckily my brain turned on and I was able to figure out how to log out and then log in with my Twitch account. And now everything's back. So we're good to go. So let's jump into episode 3, Dark Heroes. We'll get this knocked out. I'm going to post this today, and then I'm going to go ahead and record the Ice Heroes right after this, and I'm going to schedule that to post tomorrow at about 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll get episode 3 and 4 done, and then, like I said, we can kind of move on to some other cool content that I want to cover, and some of the heroes that are relatively new that I haven't had a chance to talk about yet. So as far as the costumes, again, there were 25 new costumes that came out a couple months ago. There are 4 in the dark that we're going to cover today, and then there's 5 left in the ice, which we'll cover in the next video. So as far as the dark heroes, the first is Oberon. He's a 3-star rare hero. I think it's interesting as far as what they did with his costume, as far as adding a poison damage that can't be cleansed, but I am going to recommend, or at least how I would approach it, is I really like Oberon's base with the costume bonus. I don't see myself using his costume per se. So as far as the reason why I don't really like his costume is he's moving from a fighter to a sorcerer. So I don't really like that aspect of it as far as losing that fighter ability to revive. Especially with him running at slow mana speed, so I kind of feel like that's the first thing that takes away. He's now the Jester Remnant. His new special is called Toxic Tricks, running at slow mana speed, and he's putting a 324 poison damage over 3 turns, and this effect can't be cleansed. So that's not bad, but running at slow speed, I just feel like he's got to be either in a tank or a flank 2 or maybe a wing 2 position to make sure that his mana is charging up if you have him on like a defense. So I just don't think it's a good combination of the costume to be losing that fighter ability to be able to revive. So I am going to recommend, as far as the positions, the way I would approach it is I would look to put him as a tank, a flank 2, or a wing 2 if I were to use his costume, but I am pretty much going to stick to the base. And as far as emblems, I'm not going to suggest an emblem path on him because I just don't think that with how it's built, either on the base or the costume side, he's really worth putting emblems on. So let's just take a look at the stats, and then we'll move on to some of the other heroes where I do think that they're worth embleming. So with Oberon, his base stats with the costume bonus is going to bring his attack to 443. It brings his defense to 431 and his health to 922. So those are average. There's nothing spectacular about that. I think the defense is a little bit low, and the health is okay, but it's really hard to picture running him as like a tank or a flank 2 on a defense if you had to in like a 3-star tourney or something like that. So just overall, Oberon, the costume looks really cool, but it's just not really impressive in terms of how it's built. So again, I'm not going to even look at emblems for him. So Cyprian is the 4-star dark costume that's new. This is exactly the same thing as what they did with Boral's costume, where essentially they're taking his counterattack, instead of on 3 targets, they're moving it to the entire team. But they're lowering that counterattack significantly. And it's also, instead of running for 5 turns, it's running at 4 turns. So I am going to say the Cyprian base version with the costume bonus is definitely a better option than going with the costume bonus, in my opinion. The main reason for the counterattack on all your allies not being as beneficial is because with the new formations like a double or a reverse double, you can use these heroes that put like a counterattack on themselves and the two surrounding heroes. You can use that to actually apply it to your whole team in the right formation if you're running on a defense. So I kind of feel like the downgrade of the amount of counterattack on Cyprian just really isn't worth it. So I probably will use him in his base version with the costume bonus going forward. So he is now called the Deathless Prince. He is moving from a paladin to a sorcerer on his costume side. So I do kind of like him as a paladin a little bit better. He's, that's the same way that I look at Boral. I just think he is built well for a paladin. You kind of want him to be a little tanky so he can survive and have enough time to get that counterattack off. So if you are looking to position him, I would say Cyprian in his costume, he is putting a counterattack on all, but again, I would focus on the base version. So I would keep looking at him as a good option for maybe a tank or flank 2 or a wing 2. With the costume version, you can throw him in wing 2, but then if you are talking specifically about the base, you do want to keep him as a tank or a flank 2, just so that he has at least those two allies on either side, so you can make the most of his counterattack. Because again, it is only applying to himself and the surrounding allies. As far as his stats, without putting any emblems on, you can get his base attack up to 591, which really isn't going to make or break anything because he's not putting out any direct attack. And it's not a huge attack value that's really going to make a big difference as far as a tile multiplier. His defense does get up to 635 and his health is 1498, so I think that's pretty good as well. And again, this is on the base with the costume bonus, so I think with that health and then the ability for the paladin ability to go off and add 50% more defense, he can still be pretty tanky. So when I'm looking at the emblem path, again, I'm going to be really focusing on his base side. So I played around with the emblems. I think if you were to take him up to 15 on the emblem path, that would cost you 350 paladin emblems, which isn't too crazy if you're kind of waiting for like a legendary or another epic to put emblems on anyway that you don't have. You can always pull these off, and the 4 stars are not that expensive to pull the emblems off. You lose some food and iron, but it's not as crazy as like a legendary. So if you do emblem him following the path of left, right, left, right, left, you can get his attack up to 623. Again, not a big deal because of what he's doing with this special, but you can bring his defense up to 725, and you can bring his health up to 1614. And then you have a 1 in 4 chance that paladin ability is going to go off. So if I were to emblem Cyprian, this is definitely the emblem path I would take, and I don't really see a need to take him past 15. So for 350 emblems, you can kind of get in and out without using too much of the emblems. Cyprian, not bad, but essentially, if you like Boral, you'd like Cyprian. He's just dark instead of ice, and if you didn't like Boral, you're probably still not going to like Cyprian too much. So the next hero is Sabina. Now, I do think that the costume for Sabina is an upgrade. She was recovering 42% health for all allies, so it was a burst heal, and then she was dispelling buffs from all enemies. But I kind of like what they did with the costume because now it's really doing a heal over time, but I like the fact of what it's doing with removing buffs, but then it's also blocking buffs on the enemy team. So her costume, definitely an upgrade in my opinion. She's moving from a sorcerer to a cleric, so I kind of think this makes sense as far as her as a healer. So I do like that. She's the Deathless Princess now, and her special is called Haze of the Fallen. So she's running an average mana speed. She's regenerating 609 HP over 3 turns for all allies. All enemies are immune to new buffs for 3 turns, which is great. You can essentially silence them from being able to put any buffs on. And then she's dispelling all the buffs from all the enemies as well. So she is really good cleaner for your team as far as removing buffs. I like the fact that she's doing the heal over time. If you don't need a burst damage or burst heal, heal over time is fine. And then I really like that she's locking down those new buffs for 3 turns. So as far as positioning, I would look to keep Sabina in like a wing 1, flank 1, or maybe a tank if you want to use kind of a healer tank option. The reason I keep her at the front of the team formation is really because she's dispelling those buffs from all enemies. So if you have big attackers that are coming up behind, you definitely want those to follow up when the buffs aren't there, if she's your key debuffer. Again, keep her at the front of the formation for the team. And then as far as her stats, I would be looking at her costume stats, which would be 742 attack, 642 defense, and 1074 health. So for a healer, I don't think this is too bad. The defense might be a little bit light in terms of the fact that she's, if you were using her as a tank, because she's doing the healer over time, sometimes it's better to have a burst healer as a tank, but she is serviceable as a tank. So again, just keep her at the front of the formation. When you're looking at the emblem path, you can look at the emblem path of left, left, right, left, right, left. This is going to take her emblem path up to level 18. It's going to cost you 395 sorcerer emblems to basically get her cleric emblem up to a 35% chance of going off. And then you can raise her stats to 787 attack, 751 defense, and 1214 health. So with the emblems, it does really make her a lot more usable as a tank if you want to go that route, or just, overall just making her that much more survivable, like a wing 1 or a flank 1. So the next hero is Obakan. So he is the legendary dark costume that's new. I do like his costume. I think it's a big improvement over his base version. So if I'm looking at embleming, and we'll talk about it, I really think that his costume side is the way to go. But again, his base version, because of the new formations, is still really good because he's dealing damage to single target and then doing minor damage to nearby enemies. So if you're attacking into a double formation or a reverse double, you can hit all enemies with that attack. And then his counter attack is only applying for himself on the base, so keep that in mind. But with the costume side, you're actually providing that counter attack of 85% damage to yourself and your surrounding enemies. So again, on a defense, if you have a double formation or reverse double, you're able to apply that counter attack to your whole team. So the combination of dealing damage to all enemies, running at fast mana speed, and then putting a counter attack on your whole team is a pretty cool combo for Obakan and his costume. So he is called the Praetorian Gladiator. He is moving from a barbarian to a rogue. So I don't mind that as so much. I do like the barbarian class ability a lot because of the bleed effect seems to go off pretty regularly. But the rogue is good. It's more defensive, and it'll allow him to have a chance to kind of dodge some of those specials going in. So with his special called Oppose and Overthrow, he is giving a pretty sizable damage to all enemies of 182%, which is great. And then, as I mentioned, you can have that counter attack work to apply to your whole team if you pick the right formation to put him in as far as a defense. His best position, I'm going to say, is probably going to be a flank 1 tank or flank 2. He is serviceable to tank in his costume build, and then you want to keep him at a flank. You don't want to take him as far as a wing, just because if you are able to put some counterattack on only 3 of your targets, you want to make sure you maximize that. You never want to put these heroes that have a counterattack or any type of buff for themselves and the surrounding enemies. You don't want to ever put those on the wings because you're just really throwing away part of the special. So as far as his stats, I'm going to look at the base and the costume. So the base with the costume bonus is pretty good. I mean, you can get his attack up to 800 if you level him all the way up. And then his defense is 669 and his health is 1460. The way I will probably be using Obakan is more in the... well, I guess it depends on which formation I'm using, but if I'm doing a normal formation, I would like to use the costume side. So you can get his attack up to 775, which is pretty good. His defense 712, which is serviceable, and then his health at 1436 is pretty good as well. So as far as the emblem path that I would look at, you would be using barbarian emblems for this. You'd need 1125 to get him up to 18. The emblem path you could follow is left, right, left, right, left, left. And this is going to bring your attack up to 903, which is really, really good for him. It's going to bring the defense up to 748, which is again serviceable. And then you're able to take his health up to 1551. And then you're given a 1 in 5 chance to him to be able to dodge those incoming specials. So I don't think I would take him all the way up to 20, but 18 might be worth it for him. And I have checked this emblem path. You can check it out as well. EP Toolbox is a great app to be able to check this, but with this emblem path, it works both for his costume side and his base side, so that's why I like it. So that is it for the Dark Heroes. We have covered everything except for the 5 remaining Ice Heroes, which we will cover in the next episode, which will be episode 4. That'll close out all these costumes, and then we can get on to some of that other content that I've been kind of holding off for, because I did promise to get these out. So once these get done, then we'll be able to move on. So thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this today, when it comes out, episode 4 Ice will be coming out tomorrow, which is Saturday around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next video. Take care, everybody.